I'm here today to stop the war because, I spent 15 years in the United States Army as a combat medic and a drill sergeant. What's happened to these young men and women, not only in training but on the battlefield, and pretty conclusive. This is an assault on humanity.
I was one of the troops. I served in Iraq. I want to see people protesting. I want this war to end.
Before I left Iraq, I was thinking, I'm not going to tell anybody what I saw here. I'm not going to talk about Iraq. I'm not going to talk about anything. But once I got home, I realized I had to say something.
We live in freedom because every generation has produced patriots willing to serve a cause greater than themselves. Those who serve today are taking their rightful place among the greatest generations that have worn our nation's uniform.
When you go in the military, they take everything away from you, even your underwear. You don't get to call anybody, don't get to talk to anybody. They separate you from society if you're taken away from home and the environment. And once you're broken down with fatigue, with the constant bombardment of the propaganda to become a soldier and what it is, you cannot help but abdicate that.
The soldier in the United States military, no matter what branch it is only trained to respond to the bell. They're not trained to think critically and act wisely. They're trained to hear the drill sergeant say, "Roar," and they go roar. It's call and response all the time. So if you say punch, punch, fire, fire. And so it's the repetitive nature of basic training.
It is really a loss of self to become a soldier. That's what soldiering does. You're willing to do something that someone you really don't know who is telling you what you have to do, and it's usually just to take up a gun and do that.
Recruiter saw me, said all the right things. We'll get you out of this town. We're going to give you money for school. There's going to be all these neat things that you can do. It's going to be an adventure.
I was told that it was an American way. It was a rite of passage for a man to go into the military, protect the country, serve your country. And I believed all that stuff. I fell for that.
When I came to this realization, I still had about a year left in the Marine Corps, so I really had to bite my tongue and, keep my mouth shut.
Once we have a contract signed, we have to fulfill it, and the only way home sometimes is to go off to the battlefield and involve yourself in this.
For me to actually be there and see the things that I saw some terrible things. I honestly thought that I wasn't going to make it out of there alive. I almost died out there.
There were all these Iraqi women and children that were there was pandemonium. They were coming our direction, they were going that way. They were just running. They were terrified. The looks on their faces, the screaming, I still have nightmares about that.
We had some pretty bad casualties, but for the most part we got away pretty much uninjured. And then you look at the middle and you see the dead civilians, the people who had no say in the matter, the people who have no weapons, the people who happen to be in the wrong place and at the wrong time.
All wars eventually turn into race wars. You can't continue to do what you're doing as long as you grant the essential humanity of the people that you're occupying, that you're kicking their doors in, or that you're shooting. You have to reduce them a level. You have to strip them of their humanity. That's why Iraqis are called Hajis and ragheads. That's why Vietnamese were called gooks. If you got to kill them, then you've got to strip away their humanity. That's the only way it makes it okay.
What's going to happen, and what I believe is going to happen, is the same thing that happened during Vietnam. Sooner or later, the troops are going to say that they've completely had enough and they're going to refuse to fight. And once the government, loses control of the military, it's over.
You can have all the college money you want, you can have all the honorable discharges you want, but the fact that you were in a war so criminal and so immoral and you did nothing to prevent your participation in it, not all the money in the world, not all the education in the world is going to erase that guilt.